Listener's discretion is advised.
All right, people. Come on now. All right, thank you very much. It's been over a month since I last talked to you all, but here we are again. Now, for the people who are waiting to get vaccinated, I got some very good news. People who will have an opportunity to get vaccinated will have it. The vaccines will be out by the time we get to May. But we're not going to get into that right now. We're probably going to get to it in the other episodes of Random Stuff. And if you have missed a story about the curfew being raged on by the rebellious Spring Breakers, here's the story from Jimmy Fallon. And of course, there's another story from that one too.
Yeah, not only is it March Madness, it's also spring break season. But over the weekend, Miami declared a state of emergency and mandated a curfew due to COVID concerns. You know things are out of control when Florida is worried about COVID. College kids were like, it's a shame because I flew to Miami during a pandemic to party very responsibly. Yep, now there's a curfew from 8 p.m. to 6 a.m., so spring breakers will have to return to their motel rooms. Yeah. The best way to guard against COVID is forcing drunks into small, confined spaces. That's what I've always heard. Some more news here. Just when you thought he was gone, I saw that former President Trump is creating his own social media platform. If it goes according to plan, it'll be the first thing he'll help go viral since the coronavirus. What?
That was a sick burn from Jimmy Fallon. Of course, if you haven't heard, that former President Donald Trump is going to, the keyword is going to, release his own social media platform. And then it's going to say exclusively for Trump supporters only. You know that all the conspiracy theories are about to come out just like the Space Needle and the Jewish space lasers. Now, enough about that. Let's talk about the shootings in Boulder, Colorado, just 2 weeks ago now. It's really hard. And even the host of the Late Show on CBS is having a hard time. But he does have some ideas. So here's his side of the story of this, big headline.
Yesterday was another grim day for America when a gunman walked into a Boulder, Colorado supermarket and killed 10 people, including a police officer. This story is unspeakably tragic, and I cannot imagine for a moment the grief of these families and this community can be approached with words alone. The only suitable way to honor these victims is with action, but our government continues to do nothing. Now, due apparently to pandemic shutdowns, it has been a year since there has been a large-scale shooting in a public place. Now, we've had 2 in the last week, Boulder and Atlanta. Evidently, the only solution for America's gun violence is putting all of us under house arrest. The responses from gun apologists, of course, have been predictable. The Colorado State Shooting Association released this statement: there will be a time for the debate on gun laws. There will be a time for a conversation on how this could have been prevented, but today is not the time. Why not? That's what they say every time this happens. And that's what I say about what they say every time they say it, every time it happens. Even the idea of it being in a groundhog situation is itself a groundhog situation. Remember, Einstein said the definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting different results. Also, same-day gun purchases. Whose stupid idea was that? Thanks, Einstein. Another gun fetishist weighing in on the tragedy is Colorado Representative and HR Supervisor for John Wick, Lauren Boebert. Last night, Boebert tweeted, "While we are still awaiting important information and details in this case, random public shootings and senseless acts of violence are never okay." Where does she find the courage Senseless acts of violence are never okay, implying, of course, that intentional violence is fine. You know, the kind her buddies plan on Parler. Oh, speaking of Capitol Hill, there was a Senate hearing on gun violence already scheduled for today, and Republicans on the Hill know the majority voters want some form of gun control. So they immediately tried to change the subject. Case in point, Louisiana Senator John Kennedy, who offered this dollop of distraction.
I do think we ought to keep this in perspective. What has happened in the last few days, what's happened in the last years, is of course tragic. And I'm not trying to perfectly equate these two, but we have a lot of drunk drivers in America that kill a lot of people. We ought to try to combat that too.
Okay, I'll take that deal. Let's regulate guns the way we regulate alcohol and cars. You got to be 21, you got to pass a test to get a license, you got to have registration and insurance for your gun. If you move to a new state, you got to do the whole damn thing over again, and you can't go out loaded. Later, Senator Kennedy spun a different line of folksy BS.
I don't believe we have a gun control problem in America. I believe we have an idiot control problem.
Oh, we definitely have an idiot control problem. It's people who don't recognize that this country has long had a gun problem. John Kennedy. So when idiots like John Kennedy refuse to do anything about getting rid of idiots' guns, it's clearly time to get rid of idiots like John Kennedy. And that means voting them out.
Yes, you heard that from the host of The Late Show on CBS. Please, for the love of heaven, 2022 midterm elections, folks. If you are a Democrat and you want to vote people like John Kennedy out, then you gotta do your part. So, please, this is very, very crucial. Now, remember the election? The 2020 presidential election, that is. Now, you know how Trump still believes in election fraud. Well, the host of The Late Show on CBS resurrected that story involving the two people that were part of the, Stop the Steal.
Of course, a lot of other idiots out there have tried to undermine your faith in voting, like the ex-president's ex-lawyer and Hunger Games soccer mom, Sidney Powell. After Biden won the election, Powell went around lying that Dominion Voting Systems, a company that makes election equipment, worked with Democrats to rig its machines to ensure a win for Joe. In response, Dominion filed a $1.3 billion defamation lawsuit against her. $1 billion. That's not good. As the former president's lawyer, her strong suit is not winning in court. But Powell is defending herself in the dumbest way possible, arguing that her lawsuit should be tossed because no reasonable person would believe her claims. In a way, she's right. No reasonable person could have believed her election rigging nonsense, which is why she spends so much time with no reasonable person. To get out of paying $1 billion, Powell's lawyers have also claimed that her conspiracy rants were just opinions and legal theories, and not statements that the public would immediately believe. Yes, I remember them not believing you. What were they chanting on January 6th?
Sidney Powell's theories are worth investigating, not that to take seriously. On and on, we're ready to go. Hang like this.
Speaking of people undermining democracy, Postmaster General and bad guy in a kids' movie threatening to turn the skate park into a car dealership, Louis DeJoy. Ever since being chosen to head the Postal Service, DeJoy has chosen to destroy the Postal Service. During the past election cycle, DeJoy, who was an ally of the former president, made changes to the Postal Service that made it a lot harder to do mail-in voting. It was so egregious that just before the election, a federal judge blocked his policy changes, calling them voter disenfranchisement. because of how badly DeJoy had slowed mail delivery. You know you're doing a bad job when you manage to slow something we already call snail mail. Unfortunately, we're kind of stuck with this guy. President Biden can't just fire him because he's not technically a political appointee, and DeJoy has no plans to mail himself a pink slip, as he recently told Congress.
How much longer are you planning to stay?
A long time. Get used to me.
At this point, he's basically herpes that loses your packages. And our postal system could get worse. In fact, DeJoy has unveiled a 10-year plan that includes higher postal rates, slower services, and reduced post office hours. Though he has introduced one-day package delivery in that your package will be delivered one day.
That means, folks, that DeJoy will help any Republican who supported Trump win the election. The next presidential election, or any election that involves not the president, like governor, Senate, and of course, Congress. You hear that? That is the one. Well, you can bash at me all you want, but hey, that's what it says. I'm not trying to voice an opinion on this one, but that's how they translated it. That's how the host of the Late Show on CBS translates those stuff. So does Kimmel and Fallon, but you're gonna have to listen to their videos. And I'll see you next week for more stuff that I haven't talked about from the Random Stuff podcast. Good night.